For years, I was my family's safety net, the one who always helped, always gave, always bailed them out. I paid their bills, covered their mistakes, and in return, they treated me like an afterthought. The final straw? A family reunion they forgot to invite me to, laughing it off like it was nothing. That was the moment I realized the truth. They didn't respect me. They only valued what I could give. So I made a decision. I was done being their ATM. When they came crawling, desperate for the money they'd already spent, I let them panic, let them squirm. And for the first time in my life, I finally lived for me. My name is Tessa, and I've always been the outsider in my own family. Not because I did anything wrong, but because somehow my success made me the enemy. I grew up in a middle-class home where money was tight, so I worked my ass off to build a better life for myself. A scholarship got me into a great college, then a high-paying job in finance, and now, at 32, I'm comfortable. I own my home outright, travel when I want, and until recently, I sent my family money every month just to help out. I never expected them to worship me for it, but I also never expected them to betray me like this. Looking back, I should have seen the signs years ago. My mom always favored my brother Mark, the golden child who could do no wrong. He bounced from one job to the next, never taking responsibility, yet somehow he was always trying his best. While I was the one who thought she was better than everyone. My sister, Lisa, wasn't much different, queen of passive-aggressive comments, always reminding me that money doesn't buy happiness, while happily cashing the checks I sent when she was behind on rent. And then there was my dad, who never stood up for me, never called out the blatant favoritism. But despite all of that, I still tried. Every holiday, I came home with gifts. Every family dinner, I covered the bill. Every time one of them needed help, I was there. I thought, foolishly, that if I kept giving, maybe, just maybe, they'd finally accept me. Instead, they showed me exactly where I stood. It started at a casual holiday gathering at my parents' house. We were sitting around the dinner table, plates filled with my mom's signature overcooked turkey, when I smiled and said, "I can't wait for the reunion tomorrow. It'll be nice to see everyone again." Silence, a beat too long. Then, Alex let out a short chuckle. "What?" he said, smirking. "The reunion was yesterday." I froze. "What?" Bella, sipping her wine like this was the best entertainment she'd had all week, chimed in. "Yeah, it was yesterday. Didn't Mom tell you?" I turned to my mother, my heart pounding. "You told me it was on the 23rd. She shrugged, not even bothering to look guilty. "Oops, must have mixed up the dates." Mixed up? I wasn't some distant cousin they forgot to call. I was their daughter, their sister. And they had a whole family reunion without me. My aunt, who had been scrolling through her phone, held up a picture. Everyone was there. My cousins, my uncles, my nieces and nephews. My parents, Mark, Lisa, all of them, arms around each other, smiling, laughing. And I hadn't even gotten a text. Alex grinned, shaking his head. "Damn, that's awkward. Guess we forgot to mention it." Bella giggled, not even bothering to fake remorse. "Oops, my bad. LOL. Something inside me went ice cold. I put down my fork, stood up, and walked away from the table without a word. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just walked, because in that moment I knew this wasn't a mistake, this wasn't forgetfulness. They had done this on purpose, and they were going to regret it. I stepped into the hallway, my footsteps steady, my breathing controlled. I didn't slam the door. I didn't let them see how much it hurt. I just grabbed my coat, stepped outside into the bitter winter air, and let it bite at my skin as I processed what had just happened. They had planned this, and now it was my turn. They had all known. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister. Every single one of them had looked me in the eye, smiled, and let me sit there like a fool while they laughed about forgetting to tell me. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my messages. Nothing. No missed calls, no texts. Not even a half-hearted wish you were here. I wasn't an afterthought. I wasn't even a thought at all. A dull ache settled in my chest, but I swallowed it down. I had spent years pretending their favoritism didn't bother me, pretending the little digs and cold shoulders didn't sting. But this was different. This was deliberate. This was them making a statement. I stared out at the quiet street, watching as snowflakes drifted under the glow of the streetlights. I should have walked straight to my car, driven back to my house, and cut them out of my life right then and there. But I didn't, because I needed to see how far they would take this. After a few minutes, I took a slow breath, steeling myself, and turned back toward the house. Inside, their laughter carried on as if nothing had happened. I pushed open the door, hung up my coat, and walked in as if I'd only stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. My fingers were cold, but I didn't warm them. I wanted to feel that chill, let it settle deep into my bones, let it remind me of exactly what they had done. When I stepped back into the dining room, no one even looked up. My mother was slicing into a piece of pie, my father refilling his wine. Bella and Alex whispered to each other, grinning like they shared some inside joke. I pulled out my chair and sat down. Bella glanced at me, raising an eyebrow. "Thought you left." I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. Why would I? It was just a silly mistake, right? Her lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. Of course. Just a little mix-up. Alex snickered. "You're taking this way too seriously. It's not like we did it on purpose." I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "So let me get this straight. You all had an entire family reunion. Everyone was there. Someone had to plan the food, the drinks, the decorations. Someone sent out invitations, set a date, coordinated everything. But not one of you remembered to send me a text?" I tilted my head slightly. "And you expect me to believe that?" My mother sighed dramatically as if I was the one being difficult. "Tessa, don't be like this. It's the holidays. Let's not ruin the mood over a simple mistake." A simple mistake. I glanced around the table, watching the way they carefully avoided my eyes, waiting for me to just drop it, to move on like I always did. I could feel the expectation in the air. This was the part where I was supposed to sigh, brush it off, pretend I wasn't hurt. That's what I had always done. Not this time. I picked up my fork, twirling it idly between my fingers. "You know," I said, my tone light, almost casual. "I've been thinking a lot about the money I send you all every month." That got their attention. Bella sat up a little straighter. My mother's eyes flickered with something dangerously close to panic. My father, silent up until now, finally looked up from his plate. "What about it?" Alex asked, suspicion threading through his voice. I set my fork down gently. "Just that it's interesting," I mused. "I help pay Lisa's rent when she falls behind. I cover Mom and Dad's medical bills. I even send Alex money when he needs a little extra for whatever it is he does these days." I let the words settle before adding, "And yet, somehow, I wasn't important enough to be invited to the family reunion." Silence. Bella forced out a nervous laugh. "Oh, come on, you're not actually mad about this, are you?" I didn't answer. Mark scoffed, shaking his head. "Oh, give me a break." "Look, you're acting crazy. It was just a mix-up, Tessa. Nobody's out to get you." Mark waved his fork lazily through the air, his tone dismissive. "And besides," he added with a smirk, "you're doing fine. It's not like you need the reunion. You've got your fancy job, your nice house, your perfect little life." There it was. The jealousy, the bitterness, the resentment that had simmered beneath the surface for years, always masked with offhanded jokes and backhanded compliments. I smiled, slow and deliberate, but there was no warmth in it. "You're right, Mark," I said evenly. "I do have a great life." Bella shot me a sharp look. "Tessa, don't be petty." A soft hum of amusement escaped me. "Petty?" I echoed. "You mean like throwing an entire family reunion and conveniently forgetting to invite me?" Silence. Then Alex rolled his eyes, letting out an exaggerated sigh. "Oh my God, you are so dramatic. You always have to act like a victim, don't you?" He shoved another bite of food into his mouth, shaking his head. "Whatever. You'll get over it, just like you always do." I watched him chew, the smug smirk tugging at his lips like he thought he had already won, like they all had. And then he said it. "Besides," he added, wiping his mouth with a napkin, "I already ordered those new Jordans with the money you send me every month. You wouldn't actually cut us off over something this stupid, right?" The room went deadly quiet. My mother's eyes widened, her fork hovering mid-air. Bella stiffened. My father cleared his throat awkwardly, suddenly far too focused on his plate. Mark, oblivious, just grinned. "I mean, come on, you wouldn't do that to your family." And just like that, my decision was made. I set my napkin down, folded my hands neatly in my lap, and smiled. "Wouldn't I?" Mark's grin faltered. He blinked, waiting for me to laugh it off, to wave a hand and tell him I was joking. But I wasn't. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, as realization settled over the table. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. Bella shifted in her seat, fingers tightening around her fork. Even my father, who usually stayed out of these things, finally looked up and met my gaze with an expression I couldn't quite read. Mark, on the other hand, scoffed. "Oh, come on," he said, voice dripping with forced confidence. "You're not actually serious." I tilted my head slightly, watching him squirm. "You think I'd keep sending you money," I said, my voice slow, deliberate, "after you all pulled this?" Bella forced out a short, nervous laugh. "Tessa, you're being ridiculous. You know Alex didn't mean it like that." "Oh?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "Then how did he mean it?" Alex let out an exasperated sigh and tossed his napkin onto the table. "Jesus, you are so sensitive. You're acting like we murdered your dog or something. We just forgot, okay? You're making a huge deal out of nothing." I nodded thoughtfully. "Right. Just a little mistake." That's when my mother jumped in, her voice coated in syrupy sweetness. "Tessa, honey, we love you. You know that. We're family." She reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. "Let's not let a simple misunderstanding ruin that." I stared at her hand, then at her face. The carefully constructed mask of motherly concern, the same mask she'd worn every time she dismissed my feelings. Every time she brushed off the blatant favoritism, making me feel like I was imagining things. And in that moment, I realized something. They weren't sorry, not for what they had done, not for how they had treated me. They were sorry because for the first time I was standing up for myself. I pulled my hand away. "You know," I murmured, leaning back in my chair, "I'm used to it. I just wonder how different this conversation would be if I didn't send you all money every month." My father cleared his throat. "Tessa," my mother started, but I held up a hand. "No, really, would any of you even be trying to smooth this over if I weren't your personal bank account?" Silence. Bella had the audacity to look offended. "That's not fair. We care about you." I let out a short laugh, sharp and cold. "You care about what I can do for you." Alex rolled his eyes, already exasperated. "Oh my God, here we go again. You always have to play the victim. Maybe we didn't invite you because we didn't want to deal with this exact kind of drama." I arched an eyebrow. "Then you won't have to deal with it anymore." The shift in the air was instant. My mother's expression flickered with unease. My father looked down at his plate, suddenly very interested in his food, though his fingers tightened around his fork. Lisa pressed her lips into a thin line. "And Mark?" Alex just laughed. "Oh please, you're not going to cut us off." "You're too nice for that," I smiled. "I guess you'll find out." Mark's face fell. I stood up, smoothing out my dress, and grabbed my purse from the back of my chair. The whole table watched me, like I was a bomb about to detonate. "Tessa," my mother said, her voice edging toward panic now. "Don't be rash. We're family. You don't just turn your back on family." I turned to look at her, my expression unreadable. "You all turned your backs on me a long time ago." And with that, I walked toward the door. "Wait!" Bella blurted out, scrambling to her feet. "You're not actually serious, right? You're not really cutting us off?" I opened the front door, letting the cold air rush in, cutting through the thick, suffocating warmth of the house. Over my shoulder I glanced back, my voice calm, almost casual. "Enjoy the shoes, Mark." And then I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. I barely made it to my car before my phone started buzzing. Mom, straight to voicemail. Then Lisa, ignored. Then, surprise, surprise, Mark. I smirked, shaking my head as I climbed into the driver's seat. That didn't take long. I wasn't even out of the driveway when the first text came in. "Mark, okay. Uh-huh. Very funny. You made your point. Can you send the money now?" I rolled my eyes and put my phone on silent. The drive home was peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of freedom. I didn't have to play the role of the nice one anymore. The one who always forgave, always gave, always put up with their nonsense. I was done. But they? They were just getting started? By the time I got home, my phone had exploded with messages. "Bella, Tessa, don't be so dramatic. Family is family. Mom, you don't mean this. We raised you better than this. Dad, uncharacteristically brief, call your mother." And then there was Mark, who had sent far too many messages for someone who supposedly didn't care. At first, it was the usual Alex nonsense, mocking, condescending, assuming I'd cave like always. "Mark, you're really cutting us off over this? Unreal." Then another. "Mark, what are you gonna do? Spend all your money on candles and fancy pillows?" Then the final jab. "Mark, fine, be petty, whatever." Then the shift. "Mark, hey, okay, listen, I kind of need that money, like soon. I smirked. Here we go. Mark, I ordered some stuff expecting you to send it this month. Oh, now he was admitting it. Mark, it's not just the shoes. I may have also gotten a new TV. I raised an eyebrow. Mark, and a PS5. Mark, and a laptop. Mark, but I had it all planned out. Your transfer was supposed to come in today. Oh, now I was Rach again. He only used my middle name when he wanted something. I took a slow sip of my tea, scrolling further. Mark, you're seriously not answering? This isn't funny. Mark, they're gonna charge my card tomorrow. Mark, Tessa, I don't have the money to cover it. Do you want me to go into debt? I nearly choked on my tea. Oh, this was gold. Mark wasn't just inconvenienced. He was screwed. He was really in trouble now. For years, Mark had carried himself with smug confidence, always certain that I'd come through, always assuming I'd clean up his mess. He had spent recklessly, never pausing to consider the consequences, because why would he? I had always been his safety net. But now he was drowning. A notification popped up, incoming call from Mark. I let it ring, then another, and another. A message came next, short and to the point. Mark, pick up the phone. I sat back, watching my screen, a slow grin forming on my face. For the first time in years, I was the one in control. They thought I'd roll over, that I'd let them gaslight me into believing I was overreacting, that I was the unreasonable one. They forgot something important. I was done being the family's ATM. And Mark? He was about to learn exactly what that meant. I set my phone down and stretched out on the couch, feeling more relaxed than I had in years. Let them squirm. Let them panic. I wasn't their backup plan anymore, and they were about to find out what that really meant. Mark had always been reckless, but this was something else. He had gone on a full-on shopping spree, fully expecting me to foot the bill like always. A new TV, a PS5, a laptop. And that was on top of the expensive sneakers he had already bragged about earlier. How much had he actually spent? Knowing Mark, he didn't hold back. Probably maxed out his card, figuring it didn't matter because, in his mind, my money was his money. But now, reality was hitting him. Hard. I put my phone on silent, turned on the TV and settled in, ready to enjoy my evening. But before I could even pick something to watch, my phone lit up again. Another call, then another, and another. He was relentless. I ignored them all. Then, after a few minutes, another buzz, this time a text from Mom. Mom, Tessa, call your brother. Now. I scoffed. Oh, now she cares. Another one followed. Mom, this is serious. He's in trouble. You need to help him. I took my time, sipping my drink, scrolling through my messages, considering my options. Then, another text. This time, from Lisa. Lisa, okay, look, I get that you're mad, but you've made your point. Can you just send the money now? He's freaking out. I grinned. They were starting to crack. Then, Mark again. Mark, Tessa, if you don't send the money tonight, I'll be in trouble. Do you get that? I can't pay for this. Oh, I got it all right. I let that one sit for a while. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Then, finally, the message I'd been waiting for. Mark, Tessa, please. Ah, there it was, the desperation. I let it linger for another 10 minutes before, finally, I picked up the phone and called him. He answered on the first ring. Finally, he snapped. Tessa, what the hell? You've been ignoring me all night. I leaned back into the couch. Oh, I saw your messages, I said, my voice calm. I was just busy. Busy? Busy doing what? Relaxing. A sound of pure frustration escaped him. Tessa, you don't get it. No, Mark. My voice was steady, unwavering. You don't get it. Silence. You assumed I'd keep paying for you, I continued. You didn't ask. You just spent money you didn't have because you figured I'd clean up your mess. Again. Another pause. Then he scoffed. Oh, come on. You're really this mad over some dumb reunion? It was a mistake. We forgot to tell you, big deal. But now you're punishing me for it? That's insane. I shook my head. No, Mark. This isn't about the reunion. My voice was firm. It's about the fact that I'm done. Done being treated like a walking wallet. Done being lied to. Done being used. His voice rose. Used? Oh my God, Tessa. You're so... I didn't wait for him to finish. I just hung up. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt absolutely free. You're acting like we're stealing from you. We're family. You have money. It's not like a big deal to you. There it was. The entitlement, the expectation, the sheer audacity of it. I let out a short laugh. Wow, you really don't see it, do you? See what? That you're being completely unreasonable? No, that I don't owe you anything? I helped because I wanted to, but now, I don't want to anymore. He let out a shaky breath. You can't be serious. His voice had lost its usual arrogance, edged with something that almost sounded like fear. Tessa, you can't do this. I already spent the money, I can't just return everything. Not my problem, I said simply. His frustration snapped. You don't get it. His voice was rising now, the panic creeping in. They're going to charge my card at midnight. If I don't have the money, my account is going to overdraft. You're just going to let that happen? I let the silence settle, let the weight of his words hang between us. Then my voice came out calm, unshaken. Yes, I am. A strangled laugh escaped him, a sound of disbelief. Tessa, come on, just this one last time, just send it, and I swear I'll never ask again. I sighed. That's what you said last time, and the time before that, and the time before that. This is different. I shook my head. No, it's not. It's exactly the same. You made a reckless decision, assuming I'd clean it up, but I'm not doing that anymore. For the first time, his voice cracked. Tessa, please. And for a second, just a second, I almost felt a twinge of sympathy. Almost. Then I remembered every dismissive laugh, every time they had shut me out, every time I was treated like an outsider in my own family. I straightened. You'll figure it out. Good luck. Then I hung up. Within seconds, my phone started buzzing again. I ignored it. A text from Lisa. Lisa, what did you just say to him? He's freaking out. Ignored. Then Mom. Mom, Tessa, you are being cruel. He's your brother. You have to help him. No, I didn't. Then Mark again. Mark, you're going to regret this. I smiled, turned off my phone, and went to bed. Let him panic. Let them all panic. Because for once, I wasn't the one losing sleep over it. The next morning, my phone was flooded with missed calls and messages. Mark, Lisa, Mom, one after another, all trying to get me to cave. But I had already made my decision. I wasn't backing down. I took my time getting up, made myself a nice breakfast, and scrolled through the messages while sipping my coffee. Most of them were predictable, guilt-tripping, whining, and demands. Then, something new. Mark, Tessa, I swear to God, if you don't send the money, I'll come to your house myself. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, a threat now? Then another message. This time, from Mom. Mom, Mark is on his way over. Please, just talk to him. I set my cup down and sighed. So that's how they wanted to play it. Fine, let's play. An hour later, just as I was finishing up some work, my doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. I opened the door to find Mark standing there, looking rough. His hair was a mess, his shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept. Tessa, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. We need to talk. I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. Talk about what? I thought I made myself pretty clear last night. His jaw clenched. Look, I messed up, okay? But I need you to help me out. Just this one time. I tilted my head. One time? You mean just like last time? And the time before that? His hands clenched into fists. Come on, you have the money. It wouldn't even hurt you. I let out a short laugh. That's the problem, Mark. You think my money is your safety net? That it's just something you're entitled to. But it's not. He let out a frustrated sigh, running a hand through his hair. But for the first time, I saw it. He knew he had pushed too far. He just wasn't ready to admit it yet. And that was his problem, not mine. Tessa, I don't have time for this. The charges are hitting my account today. I stared at him, unmoved. Mark, I just want you to take responsibility for once in your life. His face twisted, anger morphing into something bitter. This is because of the reunion, isn't it? You're being petty over a stupid party. I laughed, a slow, amused chuckle. Oh, trust me, Mark, this is about a lot more than just that. His breathing was uneven now, his shoulders tense, his hands clenched at his sides. So you're really not going to help me? Nope, his nostrils flared. Then something in him snapped. His voice dropped into a low, venomous hiss. You're just a selfish brat. You think you're better than us because you have money? Newsflash, Tessa, you're not. You'll always just be the pathetic little sister who had to buy her way into respect. And when you finally lose all that money, don't come crawling back to us because we won't care. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. I just smiled. Good to know, Mark. Now get off my property. He stood there, glaring at me, waiting for me to break, but I didn't. Seconds stretched into silence, thick with tension. Then, with a bitter laugh, he shook his head. Fine, whatever, don't help me. But don't expect this to be over. I watched as he stormed off, muttering under his breath. His car door slammed shut. His tires screeched against the pavement. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. Mom, Tessa, what did you do? Mark is furious. I shook my head, exhaled slowly, and typed out my final message to them all. Me, I'm done. Don't ever ask me for money again. Then I hit send. It felt final. I turned off my phone, shut the door, and went on with my day. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. The following days were quieter. My family didn't reach out. No calls, no messages. And for a while, it seemed like they had finally accepted it. I wasn't coming back. I wasn't their ATM anymore, their backup plan, their easy way out. It was strange at first, a relief but also an adjustment. A week passed, then another, and I barely thought about them. I threw myself into my work, took time for myself, did things I had always put off. I read books that had been sitting untouched on my shelf, took long walks just because I could, booked a solo trip, something I had never let myself do before. Then, one night, a message lit up my screen. Mark, I messed up. I don't know what to do. Please, Tessa, help me. I stared at it, waiting for that familiar tug of guilt, the instinct to step in, fix it. But it never came. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even frustrated. I had simply moved on. Without a second thought, I deleted the message. The next morning, I went about my day, completely unbothered, and for the first time in my life I realized I was finally living for myself. No guilt, no expectations, just me. And that was exactly how I wanted it to stay.